Okay, moving on to the next segment of today's show, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Sunday night football game this week between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Las Vegas Raiders. And it's interesting because if you've been following everything that's been going on with these two teams over the last couple weeks, apparently they've got some beef going around, and it all started a couple weeks ago when the Las Vegas Raiders went into Kansas City at Arrowhead Stadium and beat the Chiefs. And apparently, after the game, the Raiders team bus was doing some victory laps all around Arrowhead Stadium. Apparently, somehow, some way, Andy Reid found out about it, and he didn't seem too happy about what the Raiders did, as he told the media. And I'm going to explain to you guys what this means for both teams going into this game. Number one, a lot of people have been saying, oh, NFL players are so soft. You know, they take everything way too personally. What are the Chiefs doing? The Raiders went into their crib and beat them. And I totally understand that. A lot of times, NFL players are soft. But at the same time, you guys remember that dude Michael Jordan, right? How many times did we see in The Last Dance and just throughout many interviews that he's done throughout his career, how many times have we seen that dude just somehow, some way find and make up a reason to motivate himself? And I feel like that's exactly what Andy Reid is doing in this situation with his football team. Right now, I think we could all agree that the Kansas City Chiefs, when playing at their best, are the best team in the NFL. And there have been two different types of Kansas City Chiefs games that we've seen so far this season, right? The first type is the team that went into Baltimore on Monday Night Football and absolutely gave the Ravens the beats and beat them 34-20. And from the beginning of the game to the end of the game, it was clear to me that the Chiefs were motivated and they were the better team. And then the second kind of Kansas City Chief team we see is the team that barely beat the New England Patriots when Brian Hoyer was their starting quarterback. The team that came out very sluggish against the Los Angeles Chargers, and somehow, some way, Patrick Mahomes bailed them out to a victory. So in that aspect, I think what Andy Reid is doing here is giving his team some extra motivation in this game. Because, to be honest, so far this season, I feel like the Chiefs have shown you that, okay, maybe we do need some extra motivation sometimes, because sometimes we're so good that we get bored. We're the defending Super Bowl champions, and I think we saw that a couple weeks ago when Carolina came to town. The Chiefs won that game 33-31, and if Joey Sly somehow, some way would have hit that miraculous field goal, then the Carolina Panthers would have won this game, and we would be having a whole different kind of conversation about the Kansas City Chiefs and the concerns about them right now. But I gotta be honest with you guys. The more and more I look at this game, I have a feeling the Chiefs are going to blow the Raiders out. And I'm not trying to spoil my picks that are going to be broadcasted at the end of the show for each and every game. But at the same time, the Raiders went into Kansas City, into Arrowhead Stadium, and beat the Chiefs. And they deserve a lot of credit for that. To be honest, I'm still not entirely sure how they did it, but John Gruden historically has never been able to beat the Chiefs. Andy Reid, since he's came to Kansas City, has been awesome against the Raiders. He's only lost 2 times before that game. So I do believe the Raiders, like Travis Kelce said, by the way, in an interview, were treating that game against the Kansas City Chiefs as their Super Bowl. And I'm curious to see how the Chiefs come out and respond in this game on the road, because let's face facts. I think the more and more I look at this game, I see this being just an ideal environment for the Kansas City Chiefs. This is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs' first primetime game since they faced off against the Buffalo Bills a couple weeks ago. If you remember, in that game, Kansas City won 26-17, and to me, they just came out, and there was never really a doubt in my mind throughout the whole game that Kansas City was going to win. So I expect them to come out with a similar performance on Sunday against the Las Vegas Raiders, especially given the elements and everything that's been going down over the last couple weeks with John Gruden and his victory lap thing. And listen to what John Gruden said in his press conference.
Hey, John. Today, Andy Reid mentioned a couple times the victory lap you guys took in KC for the first game. What exactly was the victory lap, and is that something that you think about this week as far as bulletin board material or anything like that?
Not really. I mean, you can find a smart aleck bus driver in Kansas City who made some snide comments when we got on the bus. Maybe that's why we drove around the stadiums to tick him off. You know, this is ridiculous. Next question.
So Gruden was not too happy about the comments made by Andy Reid regarding the Raiders' victory lap in Kansas City. But I'm telling you, man, I see those comments by John Gruden, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, man, I think the Raiders could be in trouble because, look, the Raiders deserve a lot of credit for the fact that they were able to go into Arrowhead Stadium and get the victory. To be honest, that is something that not a lot of teams over the last couple years have been able to do. But at the same time, you have this little narrative about John Gruden and this victory lap, and how funny would it be if Travis Kelce or Patrick Mahomes scores a touchdown, and then all of a sudden you see them, the Chiefs, who are known to be a team for coming up with good celebrations, all of a sudden I have a feeling you're going to see Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Clyde Edwards-Helaire driving a bus through the Raiders' end zone. I think that would be just a phenomenal job by the Kansas City Chiefs. But I gotta say, I'm really looking forward to this game because if you appreciate the history of football, it's been a while where the Chiefs and Raiders have played, and it's been a big game like this, and both teams specifically are really good and in a position to succeed. And I feel like when you look at this game, Patrick Mahomes had an interesting quote. He said, "To this fan base and my time here, we take it personal playing them in this game. You want to go out there and win these football games against our divisional opponents. But in the quarterback's eyes, the more important issue was what happened the last time the two teams played." Mahomes said, "We don't like losing to teams twice, so we'll have the right mindset coming out. The intensity is going to be there," said Clyde Edwards-Helaire, "and it's not just through us, but it's through the NFL world. So just ultimately, we are coming in to compete." So I think when you look at these quotes, I'm expecting the Kansas City Chiefs to come out as motivated as ever with the offense playing on turf, and I think they're going to be able to get the job done indoors in that dome. And it's funny also because historically, Andy Reid throughout his career has been very, very good coming off the bye week. And I just think, to be honest with you guys, that is another advantage Kansas City has coming into this game. Also, 6 Raiders have been added to the reserve COVID-19 list ahead of the game on Sunday. If you are a fan of Vegas, that is obviously a bad sign. This isn't the first time this has happened with the Raiders a week before an important game. As you remember, they took on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a couple weeks ago, and you remember their whole offensive line was about to be out because of COVID protocol. It was a game that was supposed to be on Sunday Night Football and was flexed out. But the fact that this game is going to be in this Raider new stadium on Sunday Night Football, I'm really looking forward to it. Ultimately, the one problem is that there are going to be no fans there. But in 2020, once again, that is just something we're going to have to learn. But Andy Reid said, "I'm a big believer that you dig in on both wins and losses, and you'll figure it out. Wins because you won. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean everything's pretty, excuse me. So you go in and you try to learn from both. Obviously, with a loss, you could see how people handle it and kind of what they're made of, but you see the same thing when they win in a different way." And I feel like in Andy Reid's mind, that adds up to a consistent routine that he not only preaches to his team, but also hopes that they observe for themselves. And I feel like in this game against the Las Vegas Raiders, the Raiders' offense is really consistent. And I do feel like the Raiders are going to be able to score in this game. Ultimately, the question is, can they somehow, some way outscore the Kansas City Chiefs and their dynamic offense for the second time this season? And that's ultimately going to be the question in this game. And I feel like the Raiders, I'll be honest with you guys, even though I'm not that high on them, Derek Carr has played some really good football over the last couple of weeks. And at the same time, they deserve credit because consistently their offense has been able to score, and consistently their offense has been able to put up points. If they could get Josh Jacobs really going running the football, and they could get Nelson Agholor back down the field as one of Derek Carr's most consistent deep threats, I do think the Raiders will have a shot in this game. I'm just afraid that all of a sudden, because of what John Gruden and the victory lap story, I'm not 100% sure what the Raiders will do coming out in this game. If they could somehow, some way win, then I will be on this show giving them all the credit in the world. I just got to be honest with you guys. Right now, I would be very, very surprised given the specific circumstances, if the Raiders win. When you consider Andy Reid and his history in his career coming off the bye week, when you consider everything that's been going on, and the Raiders' defense against the Chiefs' offense scares me. The fact that the Raiders' offense was able to go into Arrowhead Stadium and perform the way they did, and still their defense was able to get all of the necessary stops as possible against Patrick Mahomes, that's a good sign. And then also, the Chiefs had 11 points in that game called back because of penalties. I'm pretty sure that that is not going to happen again this week. And so far for the Chiefs, by the way, McCall Hardman, Eric Fisher, and Mitchell Schwartz are all still on the reserve COVID-19 list, so the team has a lot of things to figure out before they head to Vegas. The offensive line also took another blow with Mike Remmers listed as a limited participant in practice, and the only good news if you're a Kansas City Chief fan is that there is a slight chance that Sammy Watkins will play on Sunday Night Football, but the Raiders may have it even worse. 6 players listed on the list, along with the 2 already on it, and Cleveland Ferrell leads a defensive group which, along with injuries, might not be able to practice this week between COVID-19 complications and injuries. And I feel like these 2 coaches are obviously going to have a lot to balance. But in this game, it's going to be very interesting for me to see, okay, who wants to step up, who wants to get the job done. And I think in this spot, I expect the Kansas City Chiefs offense to come out humming on all cylinders, and I'm going to pick them to win this game. But if somehow, some way, the Raiders win, I would be willing to put them at the top of my contenders list in the AFC. There's one thing for beating a team once, but if you could somehow, some way beat a team twice, especially when they know that, all right, you beat us once, it's now our responsibility to come out here and get some revenge. I'm curious to see what exactly the Kansas City Chiefs and the Oakland Raiders do in this spot, because especially for a team like the Raiders, they've been unproven over the last couple of years. The Raiders historically over the last 10, 20 years have not been a very well-run franchise, and I do think John Gruden, over his tenure so far, has done a pretty solid job reestablishing the culture, and in order for them to keep it going, they will need at least a competitive effort on Sunday night against the Chiefs.